All right, so before we get started, I want to ask you to think about subscribing to the channel, leave us a comment, and if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer your questions as quickly as I can. Let me share a couple of quick tips. The key thing about cashew is that you want to use soil that is well-draining soil because they don't like to be wet. They will rot out on you. If you look here, you'll see some of these actually have some mold on them already, and that's okay as long as it's a little bit. But if you're way too wet, you're going to have problems with your cashew seedlings. So a well-drained soil, I like to use the Pro Mix. And then the other thing that I like to do is I like to make sure that I barely put them in the soil. So they're literally just a little bit above the surface, just literally sticking out of the surface. With time, what happens is that rain or irrigation water will hit them and it makes them sink a little deeper anyway. So what I like to do is make sure that you plant them and they're literally sticking a little bit partially outside of the soil. Actually, just tap them in there and keep them outside of soil. All right, the other thing is that you want to make sure the seeds, when they arrive, that you put them in a bowl of water and let them sit for 24 hours, sometimes 48 hours, to make sure that the ones that are sinking are the ones that you really want to use. If they're not sinking after 48 hours, you might think that it's probably not going to work and you might be wasting your time. Now, sometimes they will work, but a very small amount of them will germinate. So it's always good to grab the ones that absolutely did not float, the ones that went to the bottom, and those, as long as they're not too wet and you don't have them under cool conditions, okay, and the soil is nice and warm and just a little moist and not too wet, you're going to get nice germination. Now, here we go. This one here, I'll show you what we're going to do is, you see what's happening is it's beginning to come out of its cashew shell. I'm going to pull it out. I'm holding the stem and the cotyledons so that I don't damage it, and then I'm very carefully kind of pulling on it. You don't have to do this. I'm just doing this to show you. Okay, so that's the shell right here. Okay, and these are your two main leaves that have all the nutrition they need. So this soil should not have any fertilizer at all. Okay, you really shouldn't have any fertilizer. It should just be a good quality, well-draining, professional mix, and that will work really well. Okay, so now to get these guys out, you're going to start squeezing the bottom. I'm at the bottom of you can see the tray, right? So I'm at the bottom here, pushing all the way up and down. So I'm going to be pushing up and down here, and I keep doing this for a little bit until I know that it's very, very loose. Okay, very, very loose. And like I said earlier, normally you want to do this, and then it's so well rooted in there. They'd be a lot bigger than this too. They'd probably be twice as tall as they are right now. We're pretty close to being that maybe another 3 or 4 inches taller. These leaves will be completely open, and this will be looking really nice and beautiful. Really, really nice looking plant as they develop. So now I've gotten that, I've squeezed it, I've moved it. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make sure that I loosen it really well, because I'm going to pull up on it and I don't want to damage the taproot. Now I know I could have waited till this was completely rooted and done it a lot easier. But why am I going through all this headache? Okay, the reason I'm going through all this headache is to demonstrate the taproot to you. And secondly, because when I planted these, I was having problems with a lot of squirrels and birds. As a matter of fact, while I do this, there's actually a raven that's over here on one of my tables, and he's digging through my pots trying to get to my soursop that's over there. So they're a real problem. So what I have to do is, these trays are covered with like a big plastic container to keep those birds out. And what's happening is the container is only this tall, right? About 6 inches, 8 inches, and the plants are already starting to come and hit that, and I don't want that problem where they're going to hit that and they're going to start bending. It's going to be a mess. So I got to get them out. So, like I said, you could leave these here much longer, but I wanted to demonstrate the taproot, and I wanted to explain that if you have any squirrels or anything in your yard, birds, they cause a lot of problems for all the hard work you do. So protect your trays somehow from the animals, because they will get in here and they will destroy. Sometimes they do it, I think, for mischief, because they don't eat this. They just go in there and they just tear it up, and they're out there hanging out and doing their thing and screwing up everybody's stuff, But they're part of nature, and yes, sometimes they do eat. Back here there are macadamia seeds that haven't germinated yet, and these seeds, oh my God, the squirrels will come around, they'll get in there and they'll just take them all. So I have some macadamia back here, and again, I have a mix of plants. Normally, I should have done a complete tray of all macadamia, or I should have done a complete tray of all cashew. Let's get back to this. So I've loosened it up pretty good. I'm going to pull from the bottom very, very carefully. Now that it's completely loose, you can see that we have a nice taproot. See that? And there's your taproot right there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I plant these in a deep container and explain the significance of why you should use a deep container like the ones that I use when I come back. All right, so I put the tray back. There are still some cashew seeds in there that need to germinate completely. They're just beginning to come out of the surface, so I left them alone. And then in the back, the macadamias are still waiting to sprout. Now these are the pots that are 3 inches by 8 inches deep. And the nice thing and the important thing is that if you're growing a tree, it has a taproot like I showed you. That taproot is critical to the development and the strength that the tree is going to have in the ground. Later it will start to develop from the taproot a whole bunch of lateral feeder roots. But the taproot is key to a good plant. So it's a really good idea when you buy plants to buy them in a deep container like this. Sometimes you think you're buying a 3-gallon plant and it's got this, nice big pot, 3-gallon pot that's, whatever that is, 10 inches diameter pot. But with this 3 by 8 inch pot, the focus is on the taproot. And inside, I don't think you can see this, but inside it has these ridges on the inside that kind of help all of the roots, even the lateral roots, develop in a downward pattern. So with time, you'll actually see some of them coming out the bottom a little bit over here, and that's a good time to go ahead and you can either go ahead and if you're going to keep it much longer, you can then take it and you can repot it into another pot. But that's the idea. You want to grow a plant that's going to develop a nice taproot, and this is one of the better ways to do it, by using a deep container. But not just an ordinary deep, round, flat, no grooves inside container. You really should consider using the ones that have these little indentations inside that direct the roots downwards. Makes a big difference when you plant that tree. Really will make a huge difference. All right, now, earlier I had said that I use a container to cover these to protect them from the birds. I didn't want you to get the wrong idea that I'm using a covered container because that would make things too hot and it would just cause a mess. You need air circulation, right? But you do want to have the birds stay away. So what I did is I was able to get some of these. All right, these are just, you can use anything you want. These have plenty of room here, plenty of spaces in here where the birds can't get in there. And then what I do is I strategically place them right over the trays like this. Set up 2 of them, one on the bottom and one on the top. And then I'll put a couple of plants along the edges here to kind of keep the birds from trying to sneak in there. Because believe me, they'll try to sneak in there. But anyway, with this system that I have here, for me, it works. If you don't have a place where you can protect your seedlings and you just have a table in the backyard, for example, this is a good setup you could use. Some trays, put them in there, use the deep tray pots, and then go ahead and cover it up. And you'll keep the birds away and you'll get good germination. So let's go take a look now at, once again, the taproot and how we go ahead and plant in these little pots. All right, so I've got my my 3-inch by 8-inch pot. And I don't know if you can see the inside of this, but if you could see in here, you can see those ridges I was talking about earlier. Those ridges inside the pot actually help those roots to be guided downwards, which is a big plus for the development of your... All right, so one of the important things you want to do is you want to make sure these are clean and disinfected. So we've done that, we've cleaned it, we've disinfected it. We took one actually and cleaned that had already had cashew written on it from another plant that was stepped up. But you should write cashew, the variety, if it's any kind of variety or any color that you know, if it's a red or yellow, whatever, that way you know. And also you should write, which I'll do later, you'll write the date of when it was put into this pot. And if you add any fertilizer, I like to write what fertilizer I used on it, along with the same date that's on the container. So all right, so one of the important things you want to do is you want to make sure these are clean and disinfected. So we've done that, we've cleaned it, we've disinfected it. We took one actually and cleaned that had already had cashew written on it from another plant that was stepped up. But you should write cashew, the variety, if it's any kind of variety or any color that you know, if it's a red or yellow, whatever, that way you know. And also you should write, which I'll do later, you'll write the date of when it was put into this pot. And if you add any fertilizer, I like to write what fertilizer I used on it, along with the same date that's on the container. So what I like to do is I like to make sure my soil is moist, okay, not sogging wet, but moist, because if it's very dry, what happens is it just falls out the bottom of the container. Then I like to tap it a little bit. Go ahead, put some more soil, tap it down. And a lot of times you'll take a stick. Let me see if I have a stick over here. Yeah, it's better actually if you take a little stick like this and then you push down all the way down. Then turn it a little bit sideways to make a little kind of a perforation all the way down to the bottom of the pot. Carefully remove it. Then I like to go ahead and I like to take my plant, this guy here. I'll go ahead and I'll place him in there exactly where he was before. So push all the way down, right about where it was. You can see, looks like that. Okay, and then I'll take just a little bit of soil, and I'll tap it. I don't want to squeeze it really hard or anything, and I do want to push down a little bit on the sides. Okay, and I don't need to water this right now because it's pretty moist, and cashew is a plant that does fine in just regular, well-drained, moist condition. It'll be fine. You don't want it to be soggy. I have plants that are a little more mature that sometimes go 3 days without any water. Okay, the soil looks completely dried out, but yet the plants are looking good. So that is the key thing with cashew plants: the taproot, the type of container that you're going to use, and also the type of fertilizer that you might want to use. You might want to use something in the early stages that has more nitrogen. So I like to use something like a 17-6-8 or something similar to give it lots of nitrogen if I want the plant to grow really quickly. On the other hand, if you don't want your plants to grow quickly, you use very little nitrogen, just a little bit, maybe something balanced like a 6-6-6, and that alone will keep them going, keep them green, and keep them healthy. One of the things I'm going to do now is I'm going to go show you a cashew tree that's a little bit over a year old, and it's from a seedling, and I want to show you how that looks, and I want to talk a little bit about that one. All right, so here we have a cashew that is an air layered cashew, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I did that. I had a tree in a container that was a little over 2 years old that it was grown from a seed, and I had never air layered a cashew tree before, so I decided to do it. And this is about a year old now, and that tree that's 2 years old that I air layered from never produced anything, right? Never flowered. But for some weird reason, this one, the air layer, began to flower just about a month ago, and you can see the flowers on it. Now, these flowers are perfect flowers, or as they say, bisexual flowers. So they have male and female flowers. Yet, from what I hear, they require cross-pollination. The fruit set on cashew, from also what I've heard from people, is that you need a heck of a lot of flowers to get the cashews to develop enough for any kind of a commercial venture. So the fruit set on it is probably around 30% compared to the number of flowers that are on the tree. So now you can see a little better. This is the container. It's one of those bags. It's kind of grow bag, and I like these because they're very efficient in terms of plants that don't like to be wet. Like cashew that likes to be a bit on the dry side. They do a great job of keeping the plant, especially when we have lots and lots and lots of rain in the summer, from getting any potential rot of the root system, because it breathes so well, the fabric, that it keeps these soil well aerated, and it prevents a lot of diseases and a lot of problems. So I like these bags. With that said, this, as I said earlier, is an air layer. It's only about a year old. I think this is dated January 13, 2021. It's over a year old, and today is April 28th of 2022. So I thought I'd show this to you to wrap up the video on the cashews that I had planted with you earlier. And you can see that even seedlings can produce flowering. And then I told you just a little bit about how the flowering is bisexual and so on. But a cashew plant is a beautiful plant. They do get kind of big. There are some dwarf varieties. I have no idea if these are dwarfs. These are just seedlings that not seedlings, these are actually seeds that I germinated and I grew. And this is one of them that was later made into an air layer and now is flowering. Anyway, thank you. If you liked the video, please give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel, leave a comment, tell us about what you know about cashew. Always willing to share information with everybody, so share some with me as well and the people that are watching the video. All right, everybody, peace. Go grow something, will you? Have a great day.